Welcome back. For today's Business Matters, we have Don Ma here with us. Don, always great to see you. What's happening in the world of business?
Yeah, good to see you as well. I'm missing Fiona apparently, but I have a quick update on an automaker right now. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration announced a recall investigation today into more than 112,000 Ford SUVs. The agency said it had received 3 complaints over an alleged issue with seatbelt retractors. According to the reports, a loud sound was immediately followed by the seatbelt rapidly tightening into the locked position. Ford said it was working with the regulator to support its investigation. The inquiry covers Ford Expeditions and Lincoln Navigators made between 2019 and 2020. The agency said last week that Ford had agreed to a $165 million civil fine. That fine came after a government investigation found Ford failed to recall vehicles with defective rear-view cameras in a timely fashion. And Tesla stock is cruising in the green, and that's because a report revealed that federal self-driving regulations for autonomous cars are in the works. Bloomberg News says President-elect Donald Trump's team is looking for policy leaders for its transportation department to develop the regulatory framework. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has criticized the state-by-state approval process for self-driving vehicles. And the Associated Press is cutting down on its staff. The not-for-profit news organization announced that it will begin offering buyouts and lay off selected employees. It said this was part of its plan to trim its staff by 8% and accelerate its transition to a digital-first organization. The AP said employees eligible for buyouts would be informed by the end of the day. The offer will include severance pay and partial health coverage for 18 months. Employees whose positions are set to be eliminated will be informed in the next few weeks. Spirit Airlines files for bankruptcy. Though travelers can still book flights as usual, the small airline hasn't made a profit in the past 5 years. Here's more on that story.
Spirit Airlines files for bankruptcy after suffering constant net losses since 2019. Spirit expects to be dropped from the New York Stock Exchange and is struggling to renegotiate over $1 billion in debt payments. The airline says it has up to 50,000 creditors.
The plan that they're proposing is to convert their bonds to equity. The current equity holders are going to get nothing. The new equity holders would be these converted bond holders. There's going to be a big legal fight over that because ostensibly the bondholders would turn around and then sell the company.
Aerospace expert David Naletti says the underlying issue is the business model. Spirit Airlines originally found success by offering rock-bottom prices. Its planes even had Home of the Bear fare painted on the engines.
The mainline carriers, Delta, American, United, they've all figured out how to compete with Spirit and other low-cost carriers on their routes. Most of the flying public are going to pick American over Spirit, price being equal.
Noletti says Spirit may have to change dramatically to continue operating. He says its ticket prices are low, but its expenses are not. During the COVID lockdowns, Spirit lost billions. While bigger airlines recovered, Spirit continues to struggle.
And despite a double price hike on forever stamps this year, the USPS has reported a larger annual loss. The Postal Service is reporting a loss of $9.5 billion for the fiscal year that ended in September. Compare that to $6.5 billion the year before. The USPS is in the middle of a decade-long overhaul. Postmaster Louis DeJoy says he believes higher postal rates and other updates will improve finances. This year, postage rates were raised twice. The forever stamp now costs 73 cents. Revenue increased from the higher rates, but mail volume declined this fiscal year. Tropicana recently redesigned its classic bottle. It has not been a hit, though. Tropicana ditched its clear plastic bottles shaped like carafes and replaced them with more traditional-looking plastic bottles. Tropicana sales had been steady for the year, but plunged almost immediately after putting the new bottles on shelves. Sales declined in July and August, and by October, sales dropped by 19%. The redesign included downsizing the bottle by 6 ounces. Prices on the new bottle are supposed to be lower, but not all stores are following Tropicana's price recommendation, leading to complaints of shrinkflation. Tropicana says they're continuing to do what they can to help shoppers get used to the new look. President-elect Trump said Sunday he'll tap Brendan Carr, a critic of the Biden administration telecom policies and big tech, as chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. A day earlier, Trump picked oil industry CEO Chris Wright to lead the Department of Energy. Here's more.
President-elect Donald Trump will tap Brendan Carr as chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. In a statement on Sunday, Trump said Carr was, quote, a warrior for free speech and has fought against the regulatory lawfare that has stifled Americans' freedoms and held back our economy. Carr is currently the top Republican on the FCC, the independent agency that regulates U.S. telecommunications. He is a strong critic of China and has been an advocate of the FCC's hardline on Chinese telecom companies like Huawei. Carr is also a critic of the Biden administration's telecom policies and big tech. Last week, he wrote to tech giants including Apple and Microsoft, saying they had taken steps to censor Americans. Carr said on Sunday the FCC must, quote, restore free speech rights for everyday Americans. Over the weekend, Trump also picked Chris Wright to lead the Department of Energy. Wright is the CEO of an oilfield services firm and a staunch defender of fossil fuel use. He is expected to support Trump's plan to maximize oil and gas production and to seek ways to boost electricity output amid a surge in energy demand for the first time in decades. He is also likely to share Trump's opposition to global cooperation on fighting climate change. Wright has called climate change activists alarmist and has likened efforts by Democrats to combat global warming to Soviet-style communism. In a video posted to social media last year, Wright said, quote, there is no climate crisis, and we're not in the midst of an energy transition either. If confirmed by the Senate, Wright will replace Jennifer Granholm, a supporter of electric vehicles and renewable energy sources.
Drivers will be filling the roads this Thanksgiving as gas prices could slip to a 3-year low. Starting tomorrow, AAA expects nearly 72 million people to travel at least 50 miles through Thanksgiving Day. That's the most since the pandemic and 1 million more travelers compared to last year. This comes as national gas prices could dip down to $3 a gallon before the travel window. The national average for retail fuel is already at its lowest since January and is just a couple cents above the 2021 level. The matchup between the NBA and Warner Brothers Discovery had ended. Warner Brothers has agreed to end its legal actions against the National Basketball Association for live games in the U.S. next season and beyond. The media company is leaving the settlement with some NBA content production partnerships and licensing deals. This includes the production of TNT Sports inside the NBA. WBD will continue to produce the show, but the show will air on ESPN. The league has chosen Disney, Comcast's NBC Universal, and Amazon Prime Video to play its live games for the next decade. Now, a warning for older Americans. New numbers reveal that customers lost a record high $10 billion to scams in 2023. The Federal Trade Commission found that the number of Americans 60 and older who lost 6 figures or more has tripled since 2020. The FTC said criminals most commonly targeted older adults with romance scams, investment fraud, and imposter scams. Experts shared the top 3 red flags for consumers. 1, an unusual form of payment like cryptocurrency or gift cards, a sense of urgency, and attempts to prevent the person from consulting others. And the Chinese Communist Party is cracking down on what they call harmful publications. Independent bookstore owners are being forced to move their businesses to other countries to live a free existence. And TV's Sean Marshall has more.
Independent bookstores have become a new battleground in China, caught in the net of the Communist Party's crackdown on dissent and free expression. The Associated Press found that at least a dozen bookstores have been shuttered or targeted for closure in the last few months alone. But the persecuted store owners have found the freedom to continue in other countries like the United States.
I said I want to live without fear because I realize that there are all kinds of uncertainties or pressures that exist. But even with this kind of pressure, I continue to convince myself that I am in a free country and I have reasons to live freely without fear.
The crackdown has had a chilling effect in China's publishing industry. Bookstores are common in China, but many are state-owned. Independent bookstores are governed by an intricate set of rules with strict controls. Owners say the rules are now being more aggressively policed. Printing shops and street vendors are also facing more rigorous government inspections.
Opening a bookstore here has opened a new chapter in my life. I am more focused on how to better manage the quality of this bookstore.
Yu Miao isn't alone in taking his business out of the country. Chinese bookstores have popped up in Japan, France, Netherlands, and elsewhere in the US in recent years. It's a result of both stricter controls in China and growing Chinese communities abroad.
I'm very happy to have a Chinese bookstore like this in DC because I can do good shopping and at the same time have some spiritual connections with some authors in China.
It's not just the content of the books that's made the Chinese regime wary. In many communities, bookstores are cultural centers where critical thinking is encouraged and conversations can veer into politics and other topics not welcomed by the regime. The CCP has various powers to control which books are available. Any publication without a China Standard Book number is considered illegal, including self-published books and those imported without special licenses. Books can be banned even after they are published if restrictions are later tightened, often for unclear reasons, or if the writers say something upsetting to the Chinese regime. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
A Russian district court fined Alphabet's Google $38,000 today for failing to remove banned content. For several years, Russia has ordered foreign technology platforms to remove material it deems illegal. The country's courts have issued small but frequent fines when they rule that companies have failed to comply. Google has been under pressure, particularly for not taking down content that Moscow calls fakes about the war in Ukraine. Russian internet monitoring services have also reported mass YouTube outages recently. The video hosting service is owned by Alphabet's Google. Opponents of the Russian government say authorities are deliberately disrupting YouTube to prevent Russians from viewing content that is critical of Putin. Russian officials blame Google, though, for failing to upgrade their equipment. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te is calling for an economic partnership with the European Union. He says the agreement would boost cooperation for semiconductors and more. Taiwan has pushed for investment and trade deals with the EU. Europe has been courting Taiwan as a partner under the European Chips Act. The legislation passed last year encourages more semiconductor production in Europe and less dependence on Asia. Speaking at an investment forum in Taipei, Lai said Taiwan and the EU must build secure supply chains for democracies around the world. Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company launched a major new chip plant in Dresden, Germany in August. The new facility is expected to be a key supplier to European industry and automakers. And staying in Europe, global holiday home rental company Airbnb has urged Barcelona's mayor to rethink a widening crackdown on short-term rentals. The company says it only benefits the hotel sector while failing to address over-tourism and the housing crisis. Here's more.
Airbnb wants Barcelona's mayor to rethink a widening crackdown on short-term rentals. The holiday rental giant argued it only benefits the hotel sector and doesn't address over-tourism or a housing crisis. Barcelona City Hall did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In June, Mayor Jaume Colboni announced a plan to shut all short-term rentals by 2028. The aim is to contain soaring rents for residents, but the measure is being challenged in courts. Airbnb argued in its letter that none of Barcelona's similar measures had proven effective in the past. Barcelona has imposed strict limits on new tourist accommodation licenses in the city centre since 2014. Airbnb cited official data showing long-term rents have soared more than 70%. They also argued the average price of a hotel room has risen more than 60%. That's despite the number of short-term rental homes halving last year from 2020 levels. Colboni has said he will keep a ban on building new hotels in the city centre, but he said he wants new hotel capacity elsewhere in Barcelona. Spain's travel industry association Excelta has lobbied for strong regulation on short-term rental platforms since 2022. It's described the boom of holiday homes as out of control in Spanish cities. A number of other cities like Madrid and Malaga have also applied restrictions this year.
And set your clocks and calendars because Black Friday timelines revealed down to the minute. Amazon's Black Friday sale starts this Thursday, the week before Thanksgiving, at 12:01 Pacific Standard Time. That's 3:01 a.m. Eastern Time. Amazon will then roll into Cyber Monday deals. That's going to start on Black Friday and end on Cyber Monday. Target plans to open its doors at 6 a.m. local time on Black Friday. Walmart started its first Black Friday event last week at 6 a.m. Its second Black Friday event kicks off online on Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For Walmart Plus members, then at 5 p.m. for everyone else. As for the stores themselves, they will open 6 a.m. local time on Black Friday. And quickly before we go here, the Nasdaq and S&P 500 closed higher today, and the Dow in the red. Tesla jumped on the prospect of favorable policy changes from the incoming Trump administration. NVIDIA reports third quarter earnings on Wednesday. We'll cover that. And that's when investors will assess demand for chips and the sustainability of the AI hype. With the key holiday shopping season set to commence, results from major retailers including Walmart, Lowe's, and Target will be closely watched this week. And the reason for that is to gauge the strength of the U.S. consumer. All right, with that, that's all that's happening today on Business Matters. Back to you, Carrie.
A lot of stories that are interesting today, Don, but the one that really caught my attention was the scammers increasing to a peak, billions and billions of dollars taking money from our seniors. It's really a shame.
Yeah, and it's not just seniors. I mean, everyone, right? I even got a phishing scam earlier today about a package being held at customs, when in fact, I do have a package coming from overseas. I'm hoping it's a coincidence. If not, it's kind of scary.
I know. I think that the scammers are getting more and more sophisticated, and I'm really hoping that something can be done about it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we'll see you back here tomorrow, Don. Appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see our friend Fiona back here as well.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Don.